everyone. Welcome back to the Talkoffame podcast. I'm Kylie Montigney, and on today's episode, we have Clifford Taylor IV joining us today. Clifford is a success story like no other. He was a high school basketball star at Olympic High School in Charlotte, North Carolina, who then joined the University of Florida football team as a walk-on without any prior football experience. After graduating, Taylor signed with Raymond Representation in April of 2021 as one of their very first athlete creator clients. Taylor has reached over 2 billion media plays on social media and has been a leading social media talent for the Los Angeles Rams, the NBA, and now has his own business, which is the Clippers Show. In 2022, Taylor attended both the Super Bowl while working for the Rams and then the NBA Finals while working for the NBA. In 2023, after a brief hiatus in late 22, he returned to form, and on March 16th, he surpassed 1 million followers on his TikTok page at Clifford. In February 2024, Taylor attended the NBA All-Star Weekend in Indianapolis and quickly surpassed 100,000 subscribers on his YouTube channel in March. Today, through sharing his experiences as a walk-on and mixing his own sense of humor and joyous personality, he has leveraged his goal nature creative spirit to stay engaged with his fans, delivering popular comedy content on all things sports and social current events. Clifford, welcome to the show today. I really appreciate you coming on and joining us today. I honestly been following your content for a hot minute. We've been talking on social media for a couple of months. So, I really appreciate
Yeah,
you coming on and taking the time.
yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me.
So the first thing I wanted to ask you to kick off this episode is how'd you kind of play D1 football for the University of Florida without any experience?
Wild story. Yeah. Even now when I talk about it, it's just like it's like how did that happen? But in a nutshell, so I got accepted into UF for academics, and so I grew up hooping, and so I, tried to walk onto the basketball team. And then, long story short, they gave the two spots. I think they gave it to the managers, which was like, all right, I respect that. They've been there, so I'm cool with that. So my freshman year, that was my first year really since I want to say like maybe third or fourth grade where I wasn't playing any, team sports during the fall or winter season. So it was definitely like a culture shock and it was weird. But then my sophomore year, I was just telling myself like somehow, some way I got to get involved in sports in Gainesville. Somehow, some way I didn't know whether that was going to be basketball, football. It could have been baseball for all I know. So yeah, so me and my buddies, we just decided to start playing intramurals. We did basketball, we did the whole flag football thing. And then just one night, and to this day, I still don't remember what exactly like caused this to happen this particular night, but I had like 4 or 5 touchdowns or something like that in the game. And then you could just tell it was an athlete there by the player exclusive gear and all that good stuff. So I just happened to have like 4 or 5 touchdowns. And so after the game, he asked me, it was Robert Clay was his name, my guy, and he asked me if I ever thought of playing, and I told him the truth. I was like, nah, I've never even considered playing football. Like flag football, that's about as much football as I'm gonna get. And so pretty much that night, he pretty much gave me the rundown of the ins and outs of Gator football. And he was a walk-on himself at the time. And one thing I think from that conversation that really stood out was when he said he put on muscle. And I've always been trying to put on muscle. Like at that time, I think I was 190, maybe 200, maybe 200. So I was like very, very slim. And so honestly, that night I kind of let it go through one ear and out the other. And I'm like, I'm not playing no football. Like, no way. And so that week led up to Florida playing LSU, which is crazy because that's the last time we beat LSU to this day, which is still crazy to think about. So that was a huge win. Coach Mullen's like first signature win. And so I just kind of in that moment, I was just kind of sitting and kind of glancing around. And I was like, maybe I can give it a shot, maybe. And so I always tell myself, you know what? If I don't make it, at least I can say I tried. But from that point on, I just started like just working out at our local rec center, finding local trainers, and then I was getting in contact with players, staff. And that's one thing about it. It's like with me, it's like if I want something bad enough, I'm gonna go to great lengths and great measures to make it happen. So I just started, reaching out to people, and They gave me some insights on walk-on trials. And the thing is, back in the Mullen era, and I think it was the same with every other school, walk-on trials were very, very low key. Nowadays, it's so public. They post about it, which I'm kind of glad they didn't at the time because I was very nervous at the trial, and so I never forget. So when we had our introductory meeting, they pretty much told everybody in there like, don't expect to come in here and be a starter and all that, which I knew because like our team at the time was loaded, which I understood that. So ended up trying out, and it was only I want to say like four of us, and only two of us ended up making it. But so that whole tryout, it was during this thing called the dead period, which meant like no football, no actual practice. So our tryout was straight agility and conditioning. That's all you do in basketball. So for me, that was like the ultimate green light. So I pretty much like in a sort of cocky way knew I was on the team before the tryout even started. When they were like, "Oh yeah, it's gonna be straight conditioning," I'm like, "Oh yeah, this is gonna be cake." And so sure enough, tried out. And they pretty much told me I had to wait until the summer because my class schedule just interfered with the time they had spring ball practice and stuff like that. So waited till about June, and then I got that call in late June, and they asked me if I was ready to go, and I was like, yeah. And then from that point on, June of 2019, from that point on, going into my junior year, I was on the squad. So
Oh, damn. At least with the conditioning, it was pretty easy compared to basketball, though. That must be the easiest thing you probably ever done was conditioning. But I
yeah,
love that you brought up that you literally set your mind to something and never give up, because that's literally how I am. If I want something, I will keep going until I get it, no matter how months or years I try. Like the
right.
mindset never stops. But with the University of Florida, with how big the school is and how big of a kind of football team they are, I didn't expect it to be just straight conditioning. I thought it was gonna be like football conditioning, like workouts. I thought it was gonna be a full blown
Same,
thing.
same. Yeah, same. I mean, I was prepping with the trainers as if I was going to the draft. I mean, we were doing like 40 yard dashes. We were doing like slants with cones, all kind of drills, sled machines, the jug machines. Like we were doing everything. So when I got to the tryout, and I was just like, no football for an SEC school, really? But then I later understood what the dead period was, and I'm like, yeah, I guess that makes sense. And so, but yeah, no, when they told me I was on the squad, so to me, when I told my friends and my family, I told them like, yeah, like I made a squad. I didn't even really put two and two together. Like I'm playing D1 for the Florida Gators, prestigious football program in the SEC. I didn't even put those together when I said I made a squad. I was just like, I made the squad, so we're here to stay now. So all my friends and my family, of course, they were so excited for it. And I think part of why I was so calm too was because I knew going in that I wasn't gonna be a superstar. I knew it was pretty much gonna be scout team, it was pretty much gonna be special teams, and just call it a career at that point. Like I already understood that. But for me, part of going back to why I wanted to try out to begin with was because I just genuinely miss being part of a team, being in team sports. Like that freshman year, it was weird, but it was also tough because it was like, man, I'm so used to just like doing something, but I wasn't doing anything but going to class and dealing with freshman 15. That was all I was doing. So yeah,
Was
being on
that
a team
during
that was
was that during COVID times or was that before?
So it was a little bit. So it was the year before that I joined the team, so 2019. But yeah, now my senior year, yeah, that COVID year, that was crazy. It was a lot because that off season, I will admit that off season after my junior year, that was the toughest thing ever because in basketball you don't live as much as a football player, so they're expecting you to live 225 and everything like with ease, and so I kind of had to dig deep and lock in a little bit during the off season. We were running stadiums, doing all these crazy drills. I remember one day we did something where we ran around the entire campus in the morning. We
Oh
just ran
wow.
around the entire campus. So I would say about 80% of it I was fine, but that last leg I was just like, man, this is tough, man. So no, it was definitely a culture shock. But yeah, 2020, and I'll never forget. It was the week before spring ball was supposed to start. The Big Ten and ACC, they already shut down. But they always say in the SEC, it just means more. That's just their saying. So I'm like, oh, well, we're still gonna have spring ball. And I never get. We had a team meeting, and when he said that they shut down spring ball and everything, like we were just devastated. We were devastated. I mean, I think for me, it was one of those things where it's like, man, I can't. Like that's the thing. I never had a spring game. I never had spring ball. Never did any of that. All I ever had was summer training camp. That was it. And so, in a way, we were all robbed of that. But in hindsight, it was like the world was just going through so much stuff. It was way more than football. And so, I obviously now I understand why we had to shut everything down. But yeah, no, 2020, and then that whole 2020 season was just a roller coaster. Like our training camp, golly, it was like 7 weeks, something like that. It
Oh,
was like
wow.
7 straight weeks. Granted, we had more off days, which was cool, but it was just 7 straight weeks of just the same stuff over and over and over again. And so when the season started, it couldn't get here fast enough. And then obviously we did okay, went to the Cotton Bowl, got killed by Oklahoma. And I think what sucks about that season is that all of it really gets overshadowed by, of course, when Marco threw the shoe and everything like that. But it's like if people really go back and look at that season, that was a real special season. I mean, we clinched the SEC East for the first time in God knows how long. We had an All-American, obviously my teammate Kyle Pitts. We had guys like Kadarius Toney, Kyle Trask, and things like that. We beat Georgia for the first time in forever. That was the one and only time that we beat Georgia when I was there. So
Hmm.
that kind of sucked, but yeah, at least I can say I was 2-1 against Florida State. But as a player, yeah, I'm 1-0 because we didn't even play in my sophomore or my senior year because it was just an all conference schedule. But yeah, my UF career was very interesting, very
I
different.
know. Especially with your
But the best
senior
times
year
for
with
sure.
COVID, that's tough. Like, honestly, going to my senior year now. So it's course like if I was a senior during COVID, I would be like, this is this rigged. Like most people didn't get graduation, nothing. Like people were playing sports. Like my brother plays baseball right now.
Yeah.
He's a high school baseball right now. So he was rigged of a season and I really feel for all those people that lost a season, especially as a senior in high school or college, that you miss out on a season that you could have just played. But of course, with the big like SEC, I believe was the last conference to shut down. I could be wrong, but I believe it was like the last or one of few to close after the Big Ten. Because Big
Yeah.
Ten, once COVID started, the Big Ten really just shut down after a couple weeks. With Penn State football, my whole family's Penn State fans, that devastated my family. I was only one that only cared about baseball rather than football. But with Florida State and University of Florida, that's always a game that, is so pumped, but at least you just got 1-0. You couldn't really just, shut down the other games that you lost, even if it was like a spring game or whatever it was.
Yeah. I say 2-0 because they were so bad in 2020. I just claim it 2-0. And I also claim it just to piss my best friend off. My best friend ironically, he's a Seminole. So, I just do it just to get on his nerves.
Oh my gosh. They were actually bad in 2020? Oh my
Yeah, no, that was when FSU was going through what Florida's going through right now. Yeah, FSU they were terrible. Like my entire college career, they were horrible. And then a couple years after we left, they started picking it up again. And obviously they went undefeated last season and things like that. But yeah, no, when I was in school, Florida State was awful. They were terrible.
gosh. But did you like with the COVID season, did you get an extra year? Or no, it was a senior year last
So
year.
So we did get an extra year, but the reason I didn't take it was because NIL stalled because NIL was supposed to start that winter of 2021. Had it started, I would have done a fifth year. I would have done the whole thing. No question. But when that got stalled to the spring and into the summer, I'm like, it's just not meant to be. I'm gonna just go out in the real world, get a job. Hopefully, I can land a job in sports, which I was fortunate enough to do. But yeah, looking at it now, it's just like it's really cool to see NIL. and what it's done not only for like players but for their families and obviously for the fans too. With the college football video game coming back, I cannot wait for that. By the way, but yeah, no NIL, like seeing how it's taking storm, it's pretty cool to see, honestly.
Yeah, it really is. It really like it's honestly growing year by year. By the time in 2024, it's honestly growing more than when it was created a few years ago.
Oh yeah, now that you have the boosters all involved, it's yeah, it's only the money's only going to continue to increase because college sports, I mean, it's just so marketable and just it's just in my opinion, I think it's better and it's way more popular than the NFL
Yeah,
in my
I was
honest
actually going
opinion.
to say exact same thing. I was like, and yeah, after these last couple of years, it's starting to become more popular than NFL at this point.
Yeah, yeah, because
But
the NFL it's like it's just very traditional, modern, and college they just break the barriers. They just do all kinds of tradition, bands, calls, whatever the case is. It's just I think it's just way better.
yeah, I so agree. Plus, like the fans is honestly much better in the college world than it is NFL because every of course with the white game for Penn State, the fans are insane. Like that's honestly the kind of a example of how big college football is getting with the fans, with how electric the games are with the fans, especially with Penn State's one of the biggest like fans in the world at this moment, maybe the best, I can't keep track at this point, but they're one of the best in college, but it started to become better than NFL with viewers, but of course with Travis Kelsey and Taylor Swift, that's
Yeah,
honestly just a growing
right,
point.
right.
But why
Yeah, they
was the University of Florida your like was it like your dream school before walking on to the University of Florida, or did you have like another school in mind?
it was Florida or bust because my dad went there, aunts, uncles, cousins, on both sides of my family. I mean, they're all Gators. There's no Hurricanes, there's no Noles. It's straight Gators. So, unfortunately, I was able to grow up in the era of watching, the Tim Tebow's, the basketball teams winning back-to-back titles and things like that. So, yeah, for me, it was Florida or well, let me not say nothing because if I didn't go to Florida, I would have went to Chapel Hill. But yeah,
Mhm.
no, Florida that was always the dream school from literally day one.
I honestly am the same way. My whole family on my father's side is Penn State alumni, and basically it was honestly a dream school for me and my brother from day one because, of course, we're growing up to games, going to stadium. Because we live 2 hours outside of Penn State, so it's not too far of a ride. And we used to have like season tickets. We used to have like all these things. If we don't go to Penn State next year, our family would probably flabbergast us for not going to PSU because our whole family went there. So if we didn't end up going to PSU or just like a family school, we wouldn't be in a family anymore at this point.
Right.
But why did you like end up, really switching over from basketball to football? Like, was it really like just because that interaction that you had, or what was kind of like the moment you really realized football was really for you at that point?
Yeah, definitely that interaction I had with Clay. But I think just because I've always just loved watching college football, like really since I was a kid. And so it was just one of those things where I enjoyed it so much. It was almost like, you know what? Why not give it a shot? You
Mhm.
know? And like worst come to worst, and I don't make it, guess what? I'm still gonna be in the stands cheering for the Gators on Saturdays. I'm
Yeah.
still gonna be, binge watching games all day. Like that's the thing. When I was in college, oh yeah, there was no studying, there was no studying, there was no homework, there was like it was nothing. It was college football all day, and I'll take care of my stuff either that Friday or Sunday.
Mhm.
Saturday, Saturday, strictly college football. So I would have been fine if I didn't make the team, but that interaction and just really just the pageantry and just the atmosphere. Because sometimes I would catch myself back then on game days, just kind of doing a walk, just doing a walk around, not just around the stadium, but like obviously frat row where all the tailgates were for the students and things like that, but also just on University Boulevard and seeing just how this game just brought people of all ages together to root for 120 something players every Saturday. So I
Mhm.
always thought, like, you know what? If I can include myself in that 120 in some capacity, that would be a fever dream. And so I was like, you know what? Let me give it a shot. And so when it happened, and then of course when I started making videos and just seeing the love that I got, it's honestly still continue to get when I go to Gainesville. Oh yeah, it made it all totally worth it. I still hoop though. Like let's not get into it. I still love to play basketball, no question.
Like I know with college football during the season, always Saturdays are just for games. No, nothing happens. Even if someone makes plans, I'm like, nope. It's all if you want to watch college football, you're more than welcome to join. But if not, then I'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah.
Always Saturdays are always for college football and watching PSU game play in person or online. Every Saturday, like, it's always strictly for football, and Sundays are for the NFL. It's always a weekend ideal for myself is to watch at least one game of football every weekend.
Right. Yeah, my Panthers, they weren't no good. So I was like, you know what? I'm not even gonna watch. I'm gonna just do my homework and call it a day.
I know. That's the same for Seahawks. I'm a Seahawks fan. So, last year it wasn't ideal, but it wasn't
Yeah.
bad. I can't complain. At least they won games. That's all it was not bad. At least they won games, but it was not the best year they had, honestly, as they did previous years. But at least we didn't have Russell Wilson, so it could be worse.
Right, right.
But of course, to go into content creation, like what was like your first video that went viral?
You wanna know what's crazy? So I had a video I had a video in 2018. And honestly, it was just like, I don't even think it was a video. It was just like an IG story. And I guess it just caught the attention of House of Highlights. It was back when the Warriors were the Warriors, and they had just added DeMarcus Cousins to their
Mhm.
team, which was like adding Thanos to the Avengers. It's crazy. So House of Highlights just asked me if they could post it, and I was like, I guess, sure. I got like 1,000 followers from that.
Oh
So it
God.
was cool. But I was like, I mean, I guess I had a viral moment. It is what it is, cool. But I just kept it moving after that, really. And so uh I think my first real viral one was, I want to say, like my third or fourth TikTok video that I made. And it was pretty much just talking about how college players are during Christmas break and bowl prep. No one else is on campus. It's just us. Pretty much just giving the rundown of, practice, film study, going to get groceries with no one in the store and things like that. And then next thing I know, it's on overtime, ESPN, House of Highlights. And so I was like, you know what? We might have something here. I still wasn't sure, but I was like, we might have something here. So honestly, I just thought I just kept on just making videos because it was genuinely like a hobby. It was something, fun to do, and I got a kick out of it. So
Mhm.
it was just a lot of fun to do. And then next thing you know, I look up 10K, then 50, then 100, and I'm like, oh, like this. I don't want to jinx it, but I'm like, this might be something. I might be on to something. And then obviously when COVID happened, I just let it rip. I was just making videos like every day. I mean, I had nothing else to do. So I was just letting it rip. And so, and then I made another video. I want to say around May of that year. And I pretty much did a video where I was pretty much mimicking what players listen to pregame versus what they actually listen to. And I want to say it was Trippy Red, and then it switched to Boyfriend by Big Time Rush. And that thing like just took it to a whole nother level. I mean, it's so much so that it was on you remember that when we were like in middle school, elementary school, iFunny?
Oh
When it
yeah.
was on I when it was on iFunny, I was like, oh wow, like this is it. And so I think around that point I had just hit 200K. So 2020 season, I just kept on making it. And then after my college career was over, I kind of had to do some soul searching. I was like, okay, am I gonna do this? Am I gonna keep doing this? Am I gonna work in my major, which was graphic design? I was cool either way. And so I just kind of did some soul searching. I was like, you know what? I want to at least get my feet wet working in sports in some capacity because making content is genuinely fun to do for me. And so I was able to get a 6-week program internship with Wilson. And then that led to a connect they had with the Rams. And then I ended up working for the Rams doing, and it was a really cool role because they let me do social media and they let me do graphic design stuff for them, which was really, really cool. And so they ended up winning a Super Bowl out of it, which was so surreal. Like I never ever in a million years thought I would go to a Super Bowl. And then obviously ended up leaving them. And then I went to the NBA, pretty much did the exact same thing I did for the Rams. They let me go to the finals, which was the best ever because my favorite player is Stephen Curry because he's, from
Mm.
Charlotte. He's a Carolina boy. So seeing the Warriors, beat the Celtics in real time was like the coolest thing ever. And then I want to say around December of 22, going into 23, that's when I decided to do my own thing. Because in a nutshell, basically, it was like a conflict of interest because I was doing stuff for a brand that also did stuff for the NBA. And I think where the misconception was that I think the leads of the NBA thought I got the deal with the brand from working for the NBA. I had that deal with the brand years before I worked for the NBA. So I think
Mm.
that's where some of the confusion went. But in a nutshell, it was just a conflict of interest. And then honestly, I told my rep at the company, I said, hey, these guys, they don't want me posting for y'all anymore. And then he came back with a deal that was just I couldn't pass up on it. It was going to change it was going to not only change my life and career, but it was going to also give me the opportunity to move back home, be closer to family, and be the closest I've ever been to family, other than living with them. So when I got that deal, I was like, you know what, I'm going to start doing my own thing, and I'm going to just push. I'm just going to keep pushing, just keep creating, and then obviously when I didn't realize when I said 5 simple words that it was gonna blow up into the stratosphere when I said, a win is a win. And it's crazy because I still hear people say it in that monotone that I said it like all the time, even to this day, which is crazy. And then obviously I was doing stuff talking about the Lakers when they were going through their struggles, and I was talking about how bad the Lakers needed a center, and that just took a life of its own. I mean, I remember last year, my goal last year was, half a mil, 500K at the end of the year because nowadays and I tell people this all the time, it is so hard to grow on TikTok now. Like back then when it was only a few of us, oh, it was easy. Now you gotta really be, you really either gotta be very lucky or you gotta come up with some real clever and consistent stuff. And so fortunately that trend fell in my lap and I was just creating nonstop. And then when I hit that mill, oh man, like the emotions, especially in that moment with my best friends being behind me when it happened. Oh yeah, that was an amazing feeling. Like I remember I was like burst into tears. So that's one thing I just never ever thought would happen. And I knew from that moment, I knew that the opportunities were gonna just come swarming in. I mean swarming in. And lo and behold, I've been doing my own thing. Clifford Show's been running as a business for about a year and a half now. And so we've been off and running ever since.
Which is great. Honestly, that is a great idea to run your own thing because of course you're on your own boss, but you can do this whatever you want on your own free time instead of people controlling what you do. That is why
Yeah.
I love what I do now, besides outside the jobs I have now, is that I can just control what I want to post and what I want to do. Even it's posting on TikTok. TikTok is so big that it's so hard to post. Like, even if I post, podcast clips or this TikToks that, I'm just bored to post or whatever. It's so hard. Like, I'll be lucky if I get 100 views for crying out loud. Like, it's literally so hard compared to maybe before the pandemic. Like, once the pandemic hit, it has been zooming honestly, like, it's gotten so big to the point where you'll be lucky if you go viral at this point.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, very lucky because it's like you could have the most clever video ever. Eh, 2K. We'll call it a day. 2K. But
Yeah, and honestly, if you want to go viral, you just have to keep posting multiple times a day, every single day. Like, I can barely post one a day, let alone a couple.
yeah, no, very true. They definitely make you They definitely make you go above and beyond and push for it. And honestly, that was what I had to do for YouTube because I was posting last year around this time, like maybe one a day. But
Mhm.
then I was like, no, I gotta get this thing rolling. Somehow, some way it's gotta elevate. So then I started posting like 2 to 3 times a day. And there was actually one point in the beginning of the year where I was posting, golly, I want to say some days like 4 to 5 times on
Mhm.
there. And frankly, it worked. Thankfully, it worked. So now it gives me the bandwidth to kind of come up with new, fresh, and organic stuff. Obviously, long form stuff. But yeah, no, you definitely gotta push if you really want to grow
Yeah.
on these platforms. They make you work for it. They definitely
Yeah, and
make you work
plus
for it.
YouTube is a great way to post if you don't want to post on TikTok. I realize the shorts I post on YouTube gets literally more views than TikTok, which is weird.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's really what they're pushing now. I mean, unless you're an OG YouTuber and was doing long form years before, yeah, shorts is the way to go.
Mhm.
Honestly, it's the way to go in this era, and I don't mind it because it definitely I was able to grow on it, but yeah, that's definitely the era that we're in.
Definitely is. And I think that is a perfect way to wrap up this episode. I hope everyone enjoyed listening or watching this episode. I will catch you guys soon with another episode. Make sure to subscribe, review, like, whatever is on your platform. But I really appreciate you, Clifford, for joining us. All the work that you do is awesome, and all the sports content you're doing. As a big sports fan myself, I'm always looking for different creators, especially sports creators, to watch to make sure if I'm not watching a game, I can at least watch a 30-second video to keep myself entertained and make sure I'm caught up in something. But yeah, I really appreciate you joining us today and taking the time.
Absolutely, anytime. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. And I hope everyone enjoys the rest of their day. Make sure you stay tuned for next episode. But Clifford, thank you again. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.